Bear, I love you so, 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 so much. I don't think I could live without you.
You love me more than anyone in the world?
Yes, more than anyone.
Nikki,
Yeah?
does your dad really have cancer?
No. No, no, no.
What?
No, 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 don't do that! I thought we were having a nice day.
We are. Sit
Why
down.
does it matter? I thought we were having a nice
We are.
day.
We are. It's okay. We are.
There's a clip from Obsession, currently out in theaters, and hopefully it's going to be out in theaters for quite a bit longer. I'm Mike Hatch.
I'm Kenny Dickson.
And here we are again with Faithspotting. So you may have noticed it might have been a little bit of time since we did our past podcast. So we're making up for it by doing a 2-for-1 deal. Almost like, was it 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock, you go out when you're an older person and you get a meal for 2-for-1. Maybe that's what you got going on.
Or a double feature in film.
Let's do that. I like that better because it made us feel like we were talking about Lubies for a second or something.
Yeah,
we're going to do a double. We're going to do a double feature.
Yes,
like you're going down to a drive-in here in the DFW area. How about that? There we go.
That'll be good.
Yeah. So, Obsession is the film today. Curry Barker's film. He's the director and writer of this. Tell me a little bit about that, there, Kenny.
Well, it's a film about obsession, and specifically, it highlights the destructive power of obsessing, whether it be obsessing on relationships or anything. Here, it is a relationship, and in obsession, there's a sense to own and control, and again, especially when one is obsessed over someone else. In a relationship, and we'll get into a little bit later in the faith issues, but it speaks to coveting, to covet somebody, or to make an idol, to idolize, and it just shows the negative impact of that, and how it can destroy that which one thinks they are hoping that they're going to build. In this case,
yes,
a loving relationship, and it is anything but loving, and really not even a relationship.
Yes, absolutely. And unless you've been living under a rock, you know that this film pretty much made for about $750,000. Currently is up over $100 million that it's made. And I want to say with Obsession, I think it's Focus Films. Is that who it is? So
yeah, Focus.
I'm thinking Blumhouse might be a part of this too. Maybe I'm mixing that up. I think it might be Blumhouse as well. And Jason Blum, oh my gosh, man. Talk about a genius in horror films and marketing. And good Lord, that guy knows his stuff. So he latched onto this. So what are your thoughts on this? What did you think about this film?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. It was a fun watch, and just very well done. You never know that this was somebody's first, or at least big studio release of a film. Curry, coming from the YouTube channel world, and good, solid acting, solid screenwriting, wonderful direction. Wonderful suspense and all the crafts that make a good horror film. It was that you sort of know, you could see where it was going, but you wanted to see how you're going to get there. The end sort of destination or one of two, but what's the scenery going to look like along the way? And it was very fulfilling.
I love the way you looked at that. I hadn't really thought about it that way, but almost any sort of movie viewing that you've ever done in any film you've ever watched that might be familiar, it's not necessarily the destination, it's how you get there.
Mm-hmm.
There is so much of this film that you and I, we do it all the time, that we look and we go, hey, that reminded me of this, reminded me of that. For me specifically, going back to it might have been 1970s, maybe even 1972, there was a film that was sort of a compilation of shorter films that was put together called Tales from the Crypt. It had nothing to do from the 80s or 90s Tales from the Crypt on HBO. But one of the stories in there, which Curry Barker said it was definitely a big reason why he made this film, was the monkey's paw. And basically, there's a guy that gets 3 wishes. And you would think, oh, 3 wishes, this is going to turn out great. But it's a disaster. And that is exactly what happens with this one. In this case, our main character, Bear, he walks into this, I don't know, it looks like almost sort of like a mystical gift shop, and picks up a 1-wish willow, and almost on a lark ends up making this wish about this girl, Nikki, who he is obsessed over, to fall in love with him. And I forget the exact quote, is like that she loves me more than anything else or anyone else in the world.
Yeah, you love me more than anyone else in the world. Yeah.
Exactly. And he gets his wish and then some. The interesting kind of subtext, or maybe even part of the regular part of the story, is the fact that Nikki is still in there, but it's this Nikki that Bear has wished for that has taken over her spirit and her body. And you were saying, what movie does that remind you of as well?
Yeah, The Exorcist.
Yeah, The Exorcist. Yeah. We've got kind of a Reagan thing going on. Certainly maybe not as demonic, although Nikki does some crazy things throughout the film, that's for sure, especially at the very end with the kind of the minor character. It was, who was the girl? Sarah. Sarah's kind of a side character here. Things that happen with her all the way to the very end. But
yeah, and well, she's the one that he could have had, that Baron should have had the relationship with. He was who she was searching for, but she wasn't quite as maybe attractive, wasn't quite as magnetic, wasn't quite as this life force, which Indy Navarrete does wonderfully. But she was the one he probably should have been with. And
and we can talk a little bit more about this as we go on. But one thing I wanted to mention is that with any good film that makes you think, and this one for me, it made me think days, if not even recently, I'm still thinking about it. The social media aspect of it, of people putting up posts of their own thoughts about it, their own opinions. And one post that I heard that I hadn't really thought of, was a very interesting way of looking at it, said that, who the bad guy is in this film is Ian. Because Ian, and I'm assuming the people have already seen this film, so spoilers, Ian pretty much had kind of a booty call sort of thing going on with Nikki, where he was with her without anybody else knowing, including Bear. So somebody said in a post, they said, Ian is the bad guy here. If he had only told Bear, hey, Bear, I've been with Nikki, maybe Bear would go like, oh, well, none of this bad stuff would have happened. So that's part of the reason why I love this film, is because it opens up those conversations that, I don't know about you, but like one of the things that I love doing more than anything is after a film, either the drive home or just, maybe getting a beer or just getting a bite to eat after, you talk about the film and you reflect on it with somebody else. Yeah. This film, to me, opens up those conversations of, what happened with Nikki? What happened? And there's a scene that Nikki's asleep, but we'll call her the original Nikki, while she's talking in her sleep, says, kill me, says to Bear, kill me, because you can tell there is an internal struggle that's going on within Nikki, of the obsessed Nikki and then the original Nikki, 2 totally different versions of Nikki. So again, it's just thoughts like that we have seen in other things, like you said, The Exorcist or The Monkey's Paw. Another one that I thought of that's very recent is Weapons, all the way down to the breaking of kind of the willow. Yeah. And obviously a little bit different, but it still had to do with controlling someone and changing who they are. And I just thought that was very interesting as well.
Yeah, I had not made that connection, and that is a great connection to make on both the physical and the sort of the symbolic level with that. There's another. So there is a funny story. So interesting because Curry, he saw the monkey's paw from a Simpsons horror treehouse. I think it was like the first or second one they did.
Like the Simpsons Treehouse of Horror.
Horrors, yeah, it was the second one, I think. But they were turning in to watch. They had turned on the TV back when you had, shows had times, and so that was one of the shorts, maybe the last one. They were turning in to watch, I don't know, some other show, him and friends, and he just happened to see that. So it sort of, and then he just remembered it. But there's also the same theme, but a little bit different way of presenting it. But there was a Twilight Zone episode, back in the early 60s. And this couple, and it's one of the ones that they get a bottle that has a genie in it, and they get the three wishes, and each one turns out bad, I mean, really bad. Mm-hmm. And it's a good story. You have a story. You want to share that with how you have a personal a degree of separation from this?
Yes. So one of the things that I love about teaching is that you take so much pride in your students, especially ones that are incredibly passionate about whatever it is that they're into. So myself, I co-teach with Michael Logan. He teaches film. I teach the radio television part of our program at Prosper High School. And her name is Cindy. So hold on, I'm going to back up there. I can edit that now. So with Logan's students and my students, there is a lot of mixing up. They're friends throughout. It's like we have a big fun department that everybody knows everybody. There's a lot of kids going to hang out. They work with each other at the stadium. They all get to know each other quite well. So even though I may not have had a couple of Logan's students, I feel like they are mine. And one of those, her name is Sydney Jenks. And so I'm sitting here watching Obsession, and I'm the geek that when the Cinemark kids are coming in and cleaning up the theater, I'm still there watching the credits. So I'm just watching the credits, and in the credits goes down a little bit, production assistant Sydney Jenks. I was like, that can't be Sydney. No. So I just kind of put it to the side, and the funny thing is, one of my students works at Cinemark. He came in almost immediately after the credits rolled and said, "Hatch, what did you think of it? What did you think of it?" And we were talking about it, but it stuck in my head. Of course, I've been talking so much, I got to do this. But it was stuck in my head that, is this our Sydney that helped with this film? So I go back home, look on IMDb, and there's only one Sydney Jenks on IMDb. So I text her. I was like, "Sydney, did you happen to help with this film, Obsession?" She goes, yeah. She goes, a production assistant. I was even in a couple of scenes as an extra. And she sent me screenshots from the actual trailer that you could see her pretty clearly, especially if you know Sydney in the background. So, and Sydney being Sydney, she's super chill, very sweet, very nice. Just, you can tell even in the tone of her text that she just was like, yeah, I didn't really do a lot to help. But there was a part of me, not only just pride, but the other part of me going, and I even put this in a text where I said, "Sydney, you realize that a budget of $750,000 turned into $100 million over the course of a few weeks." I said, "You need to be like off the wall excited about this." But she wasn't. She was just like, "Yeah, I know, but I didn't really help too much." She's like, "Oh my gosh, Sydney." So anyway, it was very cool. And there was a lot of pride just to be sitting there watching a movie and watching the credits of a movie that I really, truly enjoyed, that I thought was great, and see that one of our kids, helped with it. And even better, almost the irony of the cool part of it, was sitting in Prosper at Cut Cinemark, seeing her name pop up in the exact town that she learned the craft of film. It was just a very, very cool, circle there. And that, I took a lot for that.
That's powerful. Yeah.
It was very cool. So
definitely a proud parent teacher moment for sure.
And, another thing I got to tell you too, that I think is actually leads on to the next thing that I wanted to discuss, was the way that this film is kind of in a lot of ways bringing cinema and people going to the movies back is that when I was sitting in the theater, the majority of the audience were high schoolers and probably even kids that were back from college. So I looked around and it was so cool. No offense to you and I, but it was great to see other people that were so passionate about this film and getting into it as a communal experience, as you and I have done, let's call it like it is, for decades. And we fell in love with cinema years ago. And here are these kids that are the new generation that are falling in love with going to the movies. And so it was almost like you're sitting there and you see, I'll do this all the time. And Melissa thinks it's cute, but it's just something that I do. When we're out to dinner, sometimes at a nice place around prom time, there's usually like a couple that comes in and they're all dressed up and everything. Yeah. And I like to buy them dessert, but I don't want them to know who I am. So I looked around and there was a lot of, oh my gosh, like the young love thing with prom. There was so much of me going, look at all of these people that are young, that are falling in love with this medium that I have loved for years. Yeah. It was just so cool. And that's a big reason why I love this. And I love, especially from a standpoint of getting people into the theater, backrooms as well, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, is that it gets people back into the theater.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you brought that up, because I saw this in Wichita Falls. I was playing hooky from a conference I was at, some of the night activities, and the theater was packed. I mean, not just the screen, but the parking lot was full at the Cinemark I went to, and it's like, and I even thought, wow, I hadn't seen this in a while, and for both this and in the backrooms. And yeah, the majority, there were so many young folks, and it was fun because they were talking and cutting up and, you know, and all that. But it does. And, you know, a couple things. One, the reason they're back there is because, you know, there was a following in both these films that had been built by the directors, Curry and Kane, that they had built this on their own through YouTube and other social media, and they had a community, they had a following, and they brought it back. They have given it to the studio system, given it to Hollywood or the distribution, saying, okay, you know, this can still happen, but you're going to have to let us do our thing. And you know, the key is going to be, you know, is Hollywood going to let them do that? Is Hollywood going to, you know, recognize that, or are they just going to think, oh, it's back now and we can take back over, and they're going to start giving notes and trying not to let them, you know, these young filmmakers do what they do that built their following and brought it to the theater. And hopefully they'll realize that, you know, if they try to control and manage them too much, then, you know, Curry and well, we don't need the theater. You know, we've proven we can do it, but we can do stuff on our own now. And so the whole studio system and the distribution system, you know, they're not in control. Sort of like, you know, they can't be obsessed with the control that they've had forever in Hollywood.
Ironically, obsessed, yeah.
Yeah. And so they, you know, hopefully they'll see that. And again, the suits won't try to ruin everything, like, you know, the reputation that they have. But it was great to see the young kids. And as you were talking, and it dawned on me, a lot of these kids, you know, so, you know, going back, we're now 5 or 6 years or 5 years from the reopening, you know, COVID, and, you know, this is their first experience, you know, that they can probably remember, have strong memories of going to films and of going to films in theaters. And so, you know, this is a new opening. This is something new. And hopefully, again, the system won't try to just grab it and take it and do things the way we've always done. And, you know,
and Hollywood is very, very much reactionary, not proactive. And I think that probably what, I mean, history shows that again and again and again and again. There's something new and amazing like this that happens, and Hollywood goes, oh, well, let's do this, and we could do this. And it almost to the point that it beats it into the ground. One post that I saw, and again, I love reading these posts because so many times people have such interesting ideas. One guy said, almost joking, but I went, this is kind of a good idea. They said, how about you take the $200 million that you put into Mandalorian and Grogu, which, by the way, my son and I, we went to go see probably on opening night. We enjoyed it. It was fun. It was a popcorn movie because we had watched it for years. But this person said, take the $200 million or however much it was to make Mandalorian and Grogu, give $1 million to each individual filmmaker that you can find. And almost like Gladiator, all those 200 filmmakers, let's see which one ends up the best in the very end.
Yeah.
And if you think about it from a, what is the word I'm looking for? When you think of it from a Hollywood standpoint, here's $1 million, $1 million. I mean, it's not too much of an investment for them. If they were to just even do half of that, I think that they would be pretty amazed at the results. Because it's
absolutely, and this isn't the first time it's happened. The foreshadowing of this goes all the way back to for me the first found footage film. What was it?
Blair Witch Project.
Blair Witch,
mm-hmm.
And that model was there then, and they didn't really capitalize on it, or they tried. But you're right, they are reactionary, or to use a sports metaphor, football, that they pile on.
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody wiggles free and somehow gets to try something new, and it becomes the next hot thing.
Yes.
But hopefully, and again, and we've talked before, the systematic church, or the church, especially mainline Protestant churches, they're in the same boat. They're on the same have been on the same decline as theatrical films, for a long time, and yet they know they have to change, but internally they just can't give up the people who are leaders, either in individual congregations or denominational leaders. They can't give up what they've done. We've always done it this way, or we've never done it that way, and so to Hollywood can be saved in the theatrical system, and films can be saved, but it's going to be different. It's gone through changes before, new Hollywood and old Hollywood and all that, the studio system. Sure. But but just because it can change doesn't mean it will, if they don't handle it correctly. What's coming up, because again, as in churches, people are finding other things to do on Sunday mornings. They're finding other ways to exercise the spiritual calling that they have. It's not just in church, in Sunday school, 2 hours a week, and that there are other ways. And to really pull into that, the churches have to find ways that are going to bring them and include them, and honor them in how different ways to exercise that. And same here with distribution channels and the way films are made, the way they're distributed, that you build your network, you build your following maybe beforehand, and then you can force that. Hopefully they'll get the word, and they'll replace the gatekeepers or take off the gates.
But I hope you're right. I really do.
Yeah.
Because I thought that this was this was an amazing horror movie. It did get super graphic. One other thing I was going to mention to you as well that I really loved, especially after teaching film, and it was the one part of the movie that I was happily taken out of the scene because of the way that Curry filmed it, was the scene with, it was Bear. He was in the car with Sarah.
Yeah.
And it's a scene, as soon as anybody that's seen this, they'll go, oh, I remember that one. And the way that it was shot is kind of old school cinema, just how you need to, the space that's on the shots, the space that's on the screen. It started tight where we see her, Sarah, and then it kind of got a looser and like wider. And in horror movies, what that does is it creates suspense, by giving you more space in the shot to look at and go, what the heck is going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
It makes you feel very uncomfortable. And it very much paid. I knew it was going to pay off, but it was really neat to see that Curry was using kind of those old school cinema tricks, if you will, to create suspense.
Yeah.
And that was happening throughout this whole film so many times that things were happening that you go, oh my gosh, this is like old school cinema. And I mean, I'll tell you right now, Indy Navarrete, she's going to be up for an Academy Award. There's no doubt about that. She was amazing. She was so good, and reflecting that inner turmoil of the new Nikki, the obsessed Nikki, and the original Nikki, which were two totally different people. And just especially after Bear made his wish, and she comes up to the car, and you see almost just like a light switch, just switch that into that new Nikki, the obsessed Nikki. It was just so incredibly well done.
Yeah, the combination of subtle changes and making, especially when that first happened, to the big changes and the emotional outburst after it had all been done. But yeah, she had to carry the film even when she wasn't on screen, and she had to do it twice. She had to build that magnetism up, of this person that everybody would love, everybody wanted to be around, as the old, or the original Nikki, and then she had to recreate it in a way that touched on that, but yet was different when she became the possessed Nikki, and possessed by Bear and his obsession. And those are two different ways of doing that, and she handled it seamlessly, and it is a phenomenal performance. Well,
and I'm not going to get too deep into the whole Academy Award thing, but I think that we have talked about this in the past, that the Academy is very much, yes, we will award you for amazing acting. That's kind of a given. But there are times that there is a subtext to the nomination. And I think that if I'm a member of the Academy, I'm going to vote for her, either winning the Academy Award or at the very least being nominated.
She has to be nominated.
Because this is the subtext, the fact that she has helped people get back into the movie theater. So almost as a thank you from the Academy, we're going to give you this nomination because you have helped bring these young kids, not young kids, because this is a horror movie and it's definitely a hard rated R, but you've brought this audience in to reinvigorate this industry that we love so much. So I think not only is the amazing acting going to be a big part of her nomination, but it's also going to be the fact that she is bringing people back to the theater.
Well, yeah, she is, and she will have, but even more important for the Academy, she would bring people back to the Academy Awards, which has been plummeting even more than.
That's a great point.
I mean, so if you want young people, if you want new people to come see something to the Academy Awards, you better get her nominated, and you better have some representation in this film, because if you don't, if people remember it, then it'd just be a disaster. It'd be a totally just obscene missed opportunity if they don't do that.
That's a great point. That's a great point. Hopefully kind of riding the coattails, if you will. That's a great point. Yeah.
Let's get into some faith talk on this before we move into the back rooms. Well, one, again, as I mentioned, this is the whole idea of obsession, and it builds into idolatry, which obviously in both the Judeo-Christian tradition is not something that is frowned upon, I guess, to put it very mildly. And that's when you seek to, in my sense of idolatry, to control things. You want to control it. And it seems safe. It doesn't require any kind of faith. It doesn't require, at least for the moment, any kind of again faith and vulnerability. You can't love someone and be obsessed over them, and you can't love somebody and coerce them. And so when he made the wish, he was coercing, he was removing Nikki's agency to choose to love him or not. And obviously God gives us that ability. God gives us the freedom to choose. God loves us completely, and God gives us that opportunity to accept God's love and to return it, or to totally reject it. And God's willing to undergo that pain. And Barron was unwilling to take the risk, even though she opened door after door after door. And it was a little frustrating for me at first, because I just wanted to say, tell her what you feel. Tell her you like her.
Come on. Yeah. Me too.
And so he didn't have the courage, he didn't have the guts, or he thought, he didn't think she'd do it. So rather than be rejected, I'm going to force her, and that it goes against any kind of aspect of love. And again, we talked earlier, but just the irony of the name Nikki Freeman, and when he cast that spell, he removed her freedom. She was no longer free. Also, his name Barron, if you look at that, it means nobleman or free man as well. So you have this idea of free and who we are, and he lost his freedom due to her obsession. I think his, who was obsessed, and on the surface, it's like, well, she became obsessed with him, but it's his obsession with her that led to all of this. It led to the fracture of the relationship they had, the relationship they maybe could have had, and even lives of persons in the film. And so that was gone, and he was no longer free. And then there's the Hebrew meaning of that, bear on or bar on, which Barron relates to, means son of strength or son of vigor, and he was none of that.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have that, and so there was that. The other thing, if you look at Romans 1, it talks about, and these are this contains some of the clobber passages for the LGBT, used against the LGBT community. But, it shows, it talks of Paul telling the church in Rome, they're not living up to their faith. And they've seen and they've had tastes of God's presence in their calling as to be disciples of Christ. And yet they've rejected that. And, they've sought their own personal things, and that led to activities that are totally against the teachings, perverse activities, sexual perversions, and things such as that. And again, that's a part of idolatry and coveting, their sense of control in that as well. And again, we just, as Christians or as Methodists, we just celebrated in the liturgical year Trinity Sunday. We celebrated the Trinity last week, and the essence of God is communal. The essence of God is mutual love, and in Greek there are 6 or 7 different words for love. The most familiar we talk about are agape, which is sacrificial love; phileo, which is the love of friendship, if you will. Then eros is sort of the passionate, erotic type of love. There's also storge, the familial love, and pragma, long-term love, that exists for some time, and xenia love, the love of others and guests, and providing hospitality. And that's a part of who we're called to be. We're called to love one another, and to offer love, and trying to compel someone to love you and to be in a relationship with you is not an act of love. It doesn't build community, even though Barron thinks it will. It doesn't, and it backfires tremendously. So those are, some of the reflections, I think, of faith that comes out of obsession.
Mm-hmm. Well, and another thing that I thought of, because this is the kind of film, at least for me, which is very unusual for a horror film, because most of the time, as I've said in the past, with different kinds of films that you watch, you have the Del Frisco film, which for me was this one, where you really enjoy it, and you take your time with it, and you reflect on it. But then you have the Hostess Cupcake, where you eat it and you're like, oh, that's good, and you put it out of your head. this one, this kind of goes back to the type of love that you were talking about. If you think about what Bear was doing, he was essentially forcing her to be in love with him.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, after reflecting on the film, and you know as well as I do, there were some really disturbing, gory, bloody things that happen in this film. One of the most disturbing scenes in the whole film for me was when, and they weren't really explicit on it, but let's just say that they were in coitus, let's put it that way, and she was looking away, and you heard her moaning, but you didn't necessarily, she was not into it. I looked at that was so incredibly disturbing to me, knowing that she was playing that tug of war with herself inside of her, of this original Nikki and then this obsessed Nikki. That was horrible to me. That just that one scene.
There's the original. So the original Nikki was looking away. Probably.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that was horrible. And the more I thought about it, I was like, oh my God, that was. But that's what was happening, and we knew that because when she was sleeping, she said, "Kill me, kill me," and just it. For me, that made it even more disturbing than any sort of blood that they could have shown on the screen or the brick, brick screen. So
and so it's there are a lot. There's some things we didn't get into. Sort of the whole shop where he got the Willow thing, and he goes there because Nikki had mentioned she lost her charm or her crystal. So he was just going to buy one of those. And then, so, I mean, it was just very well done. And there's sort of a thing people have frozen, and, there's a number on the box that he ends up calling, and which is sort of a fun, customer service. And when he's trying to find a way to dial back the power of this. So she's loving him, but not obsessed with him.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a number to call. Well, you can actually call that number. It's not the typical 555. We're done going anywhere. Yep. And there's so people have been having fun with that. So,
well, there's that one. And then there's also another one that you can text Nikki, and she's obsessed with you and she keeps texting you.
Oh, well.
So, I mean, it's genius. I mean, you think of marketing, and especially, let's call it the way it is, like we have throughout this whole podcast, marketing it to a younger generation.
Yeah.
That's a way to talk to them, is speak their language.
Yeah.
And it's just genius the way that they've gone about this, and the way that I'm sure, especially once Curry, essentially gave this to Blumhouse and to Focus Films, their marketing department got together and they're like, hey, how can we do this? How can we take this and really cater it to a younger audience?
Well, and the vital steps is the next thing, and there've already been some talk about this, and there's also backrooms about what's next and where do they go from there. So
knowing that, let's go ahead and let's shift gears here. Here's a clip from Backrooms. So what is this about, Kenny? Now that we've shifted gears here,
I don't know. I mean, it's and again, it comes out.
You're not alone.
It comes out of the last one. It began with an internet sensation, and it began with just a photo posted on a group chat or some type of a site of this room that was just disturbingly empty and large and hidden, and began a following of what's in that room and what goes on. And then Kane Parsons made some videos about that. And I don't know, have you seen any of his videos from YouTube?
Yes, I have. And actually, I saw them after I watched Backrooms, and they're almost exactly the same thing.
Yeah, and in a lot of ways, they're more impressive.
They are.
I mean, but again, 20 years old. I mean,
yes.
Yeah, it's amazing, but in essence, it's sort of one of the themes that goes through, and maybe we'll get into his faith a little bit, is a liminal space. It's a liminal space, and the power that has, that's liminal, being a threshold into something new, which is yet is undefined, and the calling of that undefined, and you bring in your baggage, and this is what Chiwetel Ejiofor's character, he's a failure, he's running this just god awful cheap furniture store, and he thinks he's an architect, and he's been divorced, and so he's bringing his baggage into this liminal threshold space, and hopefully he's going to find something new out of it. And just how that impacts, and I guess a lot of our discomfort, not so much as in the film, but in looking at it, how discomforting that is, and that when we're in a place that we can't recognize. And so it's just he gets into this, and it's just this like empty building, or like in the Dallas area before they tear them down, you go into these malls that have closed, and there's this eerie feeling about that. And but there it's just this one room that goes on and on and on, and then you begin to encounter things, and then some sort of people-ish type of things, and just the impact that it has.
So what did you think about this?
I liked it. I don't understand it all, but I liked some of that. And again, it reminded me sort of a 60s, 50s, 60s, maybe early 70s European weird film. And again, I just felt Ingmar Bergman's fingerprints all over it, and especially for Wild Strawberries. It had these weird sort of visuals, and it just sort of puts them there, and then maybe comes back to them or maybe not. And there's just this total ambiguity. And I just like that. I don't know. It's so different than what we typically get, in quote Hollywood films that, I enjoyed it.
There's a part of me that just, we talk about it all the time, the quote from Big, I don't get it. I felt that way. And again, the same Stu that I was talking about that came in and was chatting with me about Obsession, he comes in, he goes, well, what'd you think? And I go, I have no idea what the heck I just saw. And I really felt that way. And maybe I was like a first viewing of the morning. It was like 9 a.m. because I'm off for the summer.
Yeah.
So maybe I just hadn't woken up. Maybe I just need to see it again.
Was it, how full was it at 9 o'clock?
Especially for, it was like a Tuesday morning. Not really a lot, maybe 20, 30 people, if that. Yeah. But even especially...
I saw it, and it was pretty crowded when I saw it.
Yeah.
So I don't know, maybe you get off those vibes, or you hear the stuff, sort of, you're not conscious of it, but you hear the reactions and all that. Maybe that's what I needed, because with this one, this was nowhere close to the way that I felt about Obsession. I mean, this one to me was just so cerebral and so out there. And trust me, man, I love films like that. I love films that make you think, that make you want to go watch it again and really dissect it. I love dissecting films. I just love that, especially the way that they're made. But for me, this one, I just watched it. I'm just going, I didn't get it. I didn't get it. So I think what needs to happen, I need just to see it again. It's not like the kind of film where I'm looking at it and I'm like, this stinks and it's a piece of junk and I hate it. And yes, there could be like a little tiny speck of the fact that it's an A24 film, and that holds a lot of water for me. But I believe that it's just going to take another viewing. I'm going to need to watch it again and really try to get into that frame of mind. So when I watch it again, I'll be much more open to what it is that I see on the screen. Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing it again as well. But just to see, do I have the same reaction, or do I have different thoughts? Was it the ending that did you just feel this collapse of an ending that you didn't like?
The ending, yeah, but even just throughout the whole thing as well, it was just a little weird to me. I just literally just thought of something here.
I don't know if you probably won't have quite the reversal that you had with Sinners, but I think you might like it a little more, and for me, a part of it is just mood, when you're maybe I was just in the mood because I'm in a liminal space. At the conference I was attending, I'm very much in a liminal space because, it was the Methodist conference, and a Methodist pastor, but I'm serving in a Lutheran church, and I don't have. I've felt one of the reasons I was at the meet as I was seeing the films, I've sort of lost my tribe in that, and I'm just distanced from that tribe, and so maybe it just echoed, it reflected something that I'm going through, but yeah, I just like the creativity and the awkwardness and the weirdness, and yeah, I was frustrated with the guys like, just don't go in there. What are you doing going back? This isn't going to end well.
Yeah.
His character doesn't know that, but so
well, another thing that I'll tell you that I literally hadn't even thought of until now, and this shows you how ingrained my English class was in high school. I remember reading a short story, and I looked it up. It's from Charlotte Perkins Gilman, called "The Yellow Wallpaper," and essentially what it's about. And I'll just read you the summary here. "The Yellow Wallpaper" is an 1892 short story presented as a secret journal entries from a woman confined to a room with hideous yellow wallpaper as a rest cure for her nervous depression, most likely postpartum depression. And I was like, that is interesting, because what do we have all over these back rooms? This hideous yellow wallpaper. Yeah. I'm wondering if maybe just indirectly, that's maybe that original picture that was taken that started this whole movement. I wonder if that might be the foundation of all of this. I don't know. That's just something that I thought of. I remember reading when I was a kid.
And that's the fun part. And again, we're seeing, we talked about earlier about Obsession. So distribution is different. And if Hollywood is going to do that, you have to change. You can't use the same models. And maybe one of those changes is this gives you a key to then, or a reason to go down these wormholes or into these rabbit holes into other things. You search on this, and you go to YouTube, and you go to see all of the various interpretations, and you go back and look at the original thing. There's almost a call to action that the ambiguity of this film, calls for. Now, some people that were familiar with the whole way this movie came to be, they brought some of that into it, so maybe they wouldn't have that. But for me, some little bit past middle-aged guy, I was not aware of that. So now I'm going back and checking out, and I'm having all these other experiences of like, oh yeah, it could be this, or it could be that, or that's what that meant. And so there's a little bit of it's not a one and done, a one film, a one story, and you're done. And you talk about it a little bit later, but maybe obviously that's the part of the communal experience is that immediate, talking about the film. But now, at least for this one, you need to gather other voices and thoughts and ideas, and it can give you that opportunity to do that. Again, I'm just this is just popping into my head. So, going forward, that might be a way. You have sort of if you build into the film, the theatrical experience, back end, if you will, opportunities or motivations for back end continuing conversations and and rabbit holes, that might be something that that the studio system, the distribution system, theatrical experience could try to build into.
Yeah, I think you're right. And this, in a weird way as well, this kind of harkened back to me for the, maybe it's a stretch, but the Blair Witch Project. You don't really see a lot in Blair Witch Project. It's all completely psychological. It's all very cerebral. It's all very much in your head. And I think the difference between Blair Witch and this one, and by the way, I still stand on the hill. I think that Blair Witch is just an incredible film. It is genius. It's right up there with, like I've talked about in the past, with like Clerks and Kevin Smith maxing out his credit cards, and in this case with Obsession, 750,000. I just love stories like this in film. But this one, in a lot of ways, for me, Blair Witch, part of the reason why it was so incredibly scary and so disturbing is the foundation that was made at the very beginning of the film of this supernatural scary witch and these kids. And so it's like you started off with this old horror fairy tale, and that set that unease in you, and then you actually experienced it out in the forest. Here, for me, you were just kind of thrown into it, and there was no
there was, but it was not. It was pretty perhaps obscure. The whole, Renee's character, her, the idea, and it's done in flashbacks. It didn't set it up as we're about to go into the woods. It was sort of, it jumped into this sort of back and forth and flashback, but the whole thing with her mom, and they're putting in the handprints, and then that's being destroyed, and then it does that, but it's not as black and white. It's not as obvious that this is the setup. And even with Chiwetel's character, he had the divorce, and I guess he's just, when he's going with Renee with the psychiatrist, his role playing with that, and you get a taste of that. But it maybe they could have done a little bit more on the front end to make that a little bit more explicit, because then the rest of the film, is so implicit or whatever.
I will tell you though, acting wise, incredible, really good acting, especially Chiwetel. Chiwetel, just very impressed with that. And what are you going to do? That's the way that these guys are. That's their pedigree is acting for both of those.
I need to change my.
There you go. Oops.
Well, there we go. I don't know why when you get a phone call, it snaps you back to whatever. I think he did an amazing job, and again, as I mentioned, Renee Reinsve, she is the leading international actress right now. She got a Cannes Actress Award a few years ago for Worst Person in the World. She got nominated last year. She's won nominated for Golden Globes. She's won BAFTA, and just everything she touches, and the films that she touches do well. So again, how they got her in this moment of her peak, to do this film is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Faith wise, again, it's and there, I'm sure there are other things, and maybe if we had a part two, I don't know that I could come up with some other stuff, but just this idea of liminal space, and even in our spirituality, in our faith, we can transfer that, the life comparing life on this, in this world, to the life of the kingdom of God, or to heaven, or the new life through the resurrection. In some ways, this is a liminal time where we're not fully aware of what life is about. We're not fully aware of what love is about. And we can't really truly feel that love as we will be able to in the kingdom of God and through the resurrection. And we just sort of have to take it on faith that it's going to be different. We get little shots in that of it, but we don't have the full picture. And so we're very much in a place that's not yet fulfilled. And even again, as Christian faith, we believe that with the birth of Christ and the incarnation, the kingdom of God was inaugurated, the full kingdom of God, and it will be completed at some point. So as a church, as people of faith, even as creation, the scripture says we're definitely in a liminal space, and what it's going to be is yet to be revealed to us. And, there's a challenge with that. You have to take it on faith that it's going to be different, that there is a God in that. And so it's, for me, that's the most striking thing that came out from a faith perspective, and in our fullness of living. And the other thing, and I don't know it's so much faith, but there are these characters, the still lifes. They were the people that they were in present, and they're almost like the old AI characters where you try to do images, early Chat GPT, and people would have 8 fingers and extra arms. They're denigrated or degraded copies, and that's sort of what this room does is it makes copies. But then there's also so the life that we now have is nowhere near as full as the new life, as the resurrection life. Once it's fulfilled and once we receive that, it's going to be much greater than anything we can imagine now, and in a different way. And so, again, that's part of that liminality. And then the other thing I thought, just that cardboard man, they had these cardboard figures. It got me, when I saw that, I just thought of the selfie culture that we have. And so, you go to places, gorgeous places, artwork or wherever, and we got to try to brand it. And so we take pictures of ourselves, and we look like these cardboard characters in front of this great, wonderful place, and it detracts from that. I don't know. I don't do a lot of selfies, especially in places like that. Now, if you're with a group and you're with people, that's another thing. But you're taking a picture. You've got the statue of David. I'm going to add myself to the statue. Why? Take the picture. You can prove you were there. So there's a sense or a feeling, I guess, that I'm still sort of tumbling around with that and what that meant, and how does that represent or represent us. And that's sort of right now where I am in my thoughts on faith. And again, there would be a lot, but for right now, this was the first thing that jumped out at me is the discomfort that comes from being in a threshold space. And we are, as people of faith, we know we're in a threshold space, in a condition. So
good.
Yeah.
So there you go. So if you want to be a part of the communal viewing of really good films, again, I think I'm gonna come around when it comes to Backrooms, but still, please go see these.
Go out, see it, be a part of the movement, and do some searching and do some commenting, and just that's part of the fun. Have fun with it, and enjoy it.
And again, it's an art. So, and my thought is, with art, everybody has their own opinions, and I think they're all valid. So give it a try.